Welcome to another episode of National Divorce Talk Raw. We have a great show on Texas coming up in a minute for our allies. We don't share values with them, but that'll be coming up soon. But today, this show is all about Governor Gavin Newsom. He recently gave a speech a few days ago, about a week ago, on how California was going to respond to the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. Now, in that speech, no, the governor did not come out and endorse Calexit, but he basically couldn't address how he was going to stop America from destroying all of California's rights, and did not have the same amount of faith in America that he did in 2016 when he slammed Calexit. Basically, the governor's come up against the hard reality that in an exasperated tone and with deer in the headlight eyes, the governor was unable to explain how he was going to protect Californians against the federal government. Totally different tone than what he had in 2016. We're going to show you how he acted in 2016. We're going to show you how Californians acted in 2016. And we're going to show you how the governor acted today. This is basically a show 6 years in the making. 6 years in the making to make this one episode here where we're going to show you how Gavin Newsom has broken. He is no longer the guy who believes in America. He has had his faith shattered in America, and he is incapable of saying there's any other way out other than Calexit. It's going to take a few minutes to prove it to you, but we will prove it to you in episode 6 years in the making about how Gavin Newsom has lost his faith in USA, and he is now ready for a Calexit, and he basically admitted that live on TV. We'll show you that in a second. This is going to take a few minutes to walk through, but we're going to walk you through the whole thing. First, we need to start with the speech that Gavin Newsom recently gave. We're going to show you that, and we're going to walk you through all the things that he said. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that we do not always agree with the governor, but when the governor does things that are pro-Californian and pro-California nationalist, we completely support the governor. When Gavin Newsom said that California was a nation state and he was going to not follow federal regulations on coronavirus, Californians cheered him, and so did we here at Calexit. When the governor says we don't need to Calexit because America can be fixed, we obviously vehemently disagreed and pointed that out publicly. So we're not pro or anti-Newsom. We're pro-politicians in California acting like California nationalists. Whenever they do that, we support them. Whenever they don't, we criticize them. So let me show you the speech by Gavin Newsom. A lot of the things that Newsom said, we completely agree with. His tone, his sense of the urgency of the moment, his understanding of how dire this situation is in America, his recognition of the difference between California culture and American culture. Completely spot on with everything we've been saying. But then he lied. There's one big lie we're going to point out. And that's when he said, hey, we can fix all this with the next election. We'll show you. What's most important is that we're going to show you the questions after his speech, which the news did not focus on, the questions after his speech. When he was asked multiple times by reporters, what are you going to do when you pass all these laws and the federal government shuts it down? And he just goes, and they asked again, he goes, You're the governor, and your response to a detailed legal question is, it looked dumb. So not covered by the news, but basically he couldn't address the question he was terrified of giving a response to. Yeah, you're passing all these laws, but you're a state. What happens when the federal government smacks them all down? You can't do nothing to protect your people. Wouldn't address the question at all multiple times, and then criticized the news for even asking him that question, which always looks good in a democracy when a elected leader tells the press what they should and shouldn't be inquiring about. Good luck. All right, let's get right into it so you know what we're talking about. Oops, that's Newsom. We're going to get to that in a second. We're going to get to that in a second. But this is the one we wanted to show you. Queued up at minute 38. Give me 1 second. I have some notes. We did a a lot of research on this before we got to this one. We have a detailed breakdown of the whole thing. So let's show you the things that he said that we do agree with.
Sex education. We're going to get me started with sex education. I can't say that word in many states. Spare me. This notion of freedom. And spare me for other rights in? Yes. Freedom. Freedom? Really? That 13-year-old that's raped? Unforbid? Remember? Family? Incest? And has to bear her sibling? Has the freedom of what? So this is a remarkable moment, but we're here in California, and we're here to stand tall and to meet this moment head on and to lead in. And I'm very proud that today I'll be signing one of what I look forward, as was stated by Shannon, over a dozen pieces of legislation that should make my desk in a matter of weeks that will codify our values and will advance our value.
Right there. So he's talking about how in America they do this and they call it freedom. And here in California, we're disgusted by that concept. And he's like, really? And then he goes, our values, our values. What do you think he's getting at? California values are not like American values. He's talking about how radically different American values are from California values, to the point it disgusts Californians, and he's here to protect California values because they're so radically different than American values. That is literally what we've been saying for years. All right, next one is 4025.
Fear that we can't absorb all of that, but we will do our fair share and more. And speaking of more, I'm really proud that we're joining in with others, not just the state of California, but other governors, Western governors stood up as well. Grateful to Governor Brown, Governor Inslee, that are asserting that the United States, 6 million Americans that are likely to lose, that are reproductive age, that are likely to lose that access if all 26 of these states move in the direction that many of us.
Okay, right there. So he talks about 26 states are out of line with California values and they're going to ban abortion. And he is horrified by this picture of America that 26 states have values so out of line with California that they're going to ban abortion. He specifically singles out these 26 states. Well, guess what 26 is? The number of states you would need for California to legally be allowed to secede. Yeah, over half. We really only need 25 plus California 26 makes it perfect. So the governor literally just outlined, if California was going to secede, who would vote us out? The 26 states that have values so out of line with us, you publicly condemn them in a national speech. Yeah, they hate us, bro. I'll show you where those 26 states are in a minute. They're all in the Midwest. So that's him pointing that out. Let's go to the next one, 4050.
Other governors, Western governors, stood up as well. Grateful to Governor Brown, Governor Inslee, that are asserting that the United States of America at least has the Western United States that will stand tall in terms of our reproductive values.
Right there, where he says the United States of America, pause, the Western United States. So right there, the governor of California is drawing a distinction in cultures. Because he's trying to go, this is my image of what I think America values are. Oops, wait, let me stop myself. I meant the Western states. Again, referencing that America has culture values that are radically out of line with California, to the point that it shocks him and he feels that he's looking at two separate Americas. He basically alludes to that right there.
Reproductive freedoms, and we are a sanctuary. And we laid out the principles of what that means. One of them, mines. You see what Marco Rubio's doing in Florida? He's got a law to strip all your tax breaks if you're a company and you're providing reproductive care to your employees. That's the country you're living in right now. We are living in. But that's not a reality here in California. The rights revolution.
There you go. That's the country that you're living in, we are living in. That's the country. He didn't say that's my country. He didn't say that's our country. He said that's the country. Again, referencing to a separate nation with radically different values. And what I need to do is show you something here real quick. So it's the year 2022. And I just showed you multiple times where the governor's like, America, well, the Western America. That country, well, not like here. Well, those people, but not like here. Basically referring to America as a separate country with radically different values or a foreign land. That's what the governor's saying, June 24th, 2022. Let me show you something, though. What's this? November 9th, 2016. A joint statement from the California legislative leaders, basically the entire legislature of California, the California Senate and the California Assembly on November 29th. And here's what they said. We woke up feeling like strangers in a foreign land. Today, we woke up feeling like strangers in a foreign land. That's what the Senate and Assembly of California said in 2016. And then I literally just showed you the governor in 2022 in 3 different references, basically referring to America as a foreign land. The governor, 2022. The legislature, 2016. Governor, 2022. Legislature, 2016. Governor, 2022. Legislature, 2016. Foreign land, different values. Because Americans express their views on a pluralistic and democratic society that are clearly inconsistent with the values of California. And what is he talking about? California values. Not in line with that country, those values. America. Well, actually, I meant the Western America. 6 years apart, saying the same thing. 6 years apart, saying the same thing. What do you think that means? Okay.
When your prisoner was kicked out of the state of Virginia, God said in that race famously, or rather, in sense of God put different races, the judge said this to Mr. Levy. God put different races on different continents for a reason. God never wanted the races to mix. That was my lifetime. That was interracial marriage, which, according to Justice Thomas, should be considered.
So, that's technically incorrect. That is a lie. So I don't know if Newsom's intentionally lying. Thomas never said that. Justice Thomas said he wanted to repeal all sorts of other cases. And other people said, well, Justice Thomas, if you're looking at repealing all those cases, then you're probably going to look at repealing Loving versus Virginia, which struck down laws banning interracial marriage. Thomas himself never said that. But there's been a lot of talk by a lot of people that Thomas probably meant that. So Governor Newsom probably got that wrong. And it's probably a flub and not an intentional lie, but it is technically incorrect. Okay, just to show we're trying to be fair here. So 4440. Okay, here we go. He's going to get to it.
That's surprising because you have a U.S. Senator from Indiana who said the same thing. They're coming after you next. Period. Full stop. This is not just about women. This is not just about choice. This is not just about reproductive freedom. They're coming after you next. It's a serious moment in American history. This great divergence now. Red states versus blue states. But in the spirit that I think defines the sentiment of many of us, and certainly the sentiment of those that spoke, we are many parts, but one body. And when one part suffers, we all suffer. And so
Okay, so did you see that? So look at his face and look at his wife and Bonta behind him. So that's Rob Bonta, the Attorney General, behind him, and that's his wife in the pink behind him. And the moment he said, we all suffer, they kind of look down in disbelief while he's smiling. Look how their faces don't match his face. I'm going to replay that for you one more time so you can get that. It's very interesting.
Races, the judge said this to Mr. Levy. God put different races on different continents for a reason. God never wanted the races to mix. my lifetime.
So you see how he just said the races shouldn't mix, and then his wife shakes her head, and Bonta's looking at him like they're both agreeing, like, yeah, that's some disgusting stuff. Okay, now watch closely.
That was interracial marriage, which, according to Justice Thomas, should be considered. Not surprising, because you have a U.S. Senator from Indiana who said the same thing. They're coming after you next.
I get that because I'm interracial. And before Loving versus Virginia, my mother and father could not legally be wed. And that decision came down 10 years before I was born, meaning it was statistically possible that my birth could have been illegal.
Period. Full stop. This is not just about women. This is not just about choice. This is not just about reproductive freedom. They're coming after you next.
Okay, so watch how they're tracking with everything he says. Watch those faces, his wife and the Attorney General.
It's a serious moment in American history. This great divergence now. Red states versus blue states. But in the spirit that I think defines the sentiment of many of us.
Did you see his wife? Her eyes rolled and she blew out a gust of air. That's a sign of subconsciously releasing stress. When the governor was talking about it's about red states versus blue states, and she's kind of shaking her eyes, shaking her head, rolling her eyes, blowing out a guff of air. That's oh my God, I can't believe we're in this situation. So she's tracking along with him. Watch.
So then the sentiment of those that spoke.
Sentiment of those that spoke, sentiment of us here. Kind of, this is where he's saying, hey, this is how we all feel. Watch. So he's about to say, this is how we all feel.
We are many parts, but one body. And when one part.
Did you see Rob Bonta's eyes shift? He goes, we are many parts, but one body. And then the moment he said that, Rob Bonta's eyes shifted from following him to like, what do you mean?
When suffers, we all suffer. And so
when one of us suffers, we all suffer. He's smiling. They look down. Almost like they're not tracking with what he's saying. They're kind of going, yeah, look, I don't want people trapped in America to not get abortions too, but really 26 states are doing this. They're crazy. And we're supposed to feel ideologically aligned with them and like their fellow Americans. No, I'm kind of not backing you on this. Look at Bonta, look at his wife, look at how they look down that time when he said, we're all in this together. And yet they were tracking with everything else, with their eyes and faces on everything else he said, except for that one statement.
Empathy needs to be matched with our care.
Then they come back after that part. So on that part, they kind of ducked out emotionally. Now, maybe it means something else, but let me show you this. Gavin Newsom talked about Calexit in 2016, 6 years ago. So here he is in 2022 saying, hey, we're all part of one body. When any part of America falls, we all suffer. Bonta and his wife look down and aren't visually tracking along with him, although they followed the rest of his speech with their faces and eyes, almost like they didn't believe it or they weren't really part of that sentiment. And let's take a look here. 2016, Gavin Newsom rejects Calexit. Trump got elected, and here's what he says to people who are thinking about Calexit.
Well, it's a majority-minority state. We're so uniquely positioned to do that and lead the rest of the nation out of this mess. That's why, respectfully, I don't support walking away. You know, I support fighting. I'm not going to.
That's why, respectfully, I don't support walking away. I support fighting.
Let folks in the Midwest.
Right there. Those are a bunch of Californians. Do you see any smiling faces? Go ahead and take a look. Do you see any smiling faces? Do you see any big eyes with approval? Do you see any glowing faces? Do you see any sort of approval, or I like what you're saying, or I'm tracking with what you're saying? Or do you see a bunch of disgusted, pissed off faces? So he just said, Trump's president, I don't back leaving. We need to stay and fight, and that's why I don't back Calexit. And he has a big smile, and no one else is backing him up at all. Everybody has angry, disgusted faces like they are not tracking with what he's saying. Here, I'll show you the whole clip just so you know I'm not playing it.
I support fighting. I'm not going to let folks in the Midwest, respectfully, I don't support walking away. You know, I support fighting. I'm not going to let folks in the Midwest go alone. We're going to have to fight for it.
Look at his face, and then look at everybody else's face.
That's why, respectfully, I don't support walking away. You know,
Look at that big smile, big smile, big smile. Big smile.
Folks in the
No smiles at all.
Midwest go alone.
Did you see that?
Folks in the
This woman, underneath the guy in the gray shirt, she turns her head away from him like she doesn't want to hear. And he goes, I don't want to abandon people in the red states Midwest. And this woman, underneath the gray shirt, turns her head away like she's turning her head away from what he's saying.
Midwest go alone.
There it is. I don't want those people to go it alone. They're not buying it. They're not interested. They're not supporting. They're turning away from the governor said. Hey, I don't want America to go alone. We're one part of one body. We're always together.
When you're a prisoner, it was SBA. What is SBA? I saw some companies want to help with travel expenses to send folks to places like California, but under SBA, they're subject to civil fines. You see what Marco Rubio's doing in Florida? He's got a law to strip all your tax breaks if you're a company and you're providing reproductive care to your employees. That's the country you're living in right now. We are living in. But it's not a reality here in California. The rights revolution, what we've come to accept and expect over the last 60 years, 50, 60 years, is being rolled back in real time. Wake up. Across the spectrum. They haven't been shy, they haven't been timid, and they're just winding up. And Justice Thomas, his own words, saying, let's go. It's Griswold next. Not just Hodges, same-sex marriage, it's Lawrence. Thus, and certainly the sentiment of those that spoke, we are many parts, but one body. And when one part suffers, we all suffer. And so our empathy, the irony of that shouldn't be lost on anyone in terms of his own status. With the relation, American history, this great divergence now, red states versus blue states.
There's his wife shaking her head. There's Bonta looking at him, nodding his head up and down. So Bonta's agreeing, nodding up and down. She's shaking her head left and right.
In the spirit that I think defines the sentiment of many of us, and certainly the sentiment of those that spoke, we are many parts, but one body. And when one part suffered,
yeah, when one part, we're part, one body, one part suffers. Bonta does not, he's not looking at him. She's not looking at him. They both tuned out. They both have the exact same face as these people. Look at those faces when he says, hey, we're all Americans together. Look at those faces. We're all Americans together. 2016, we're all Americans together. 2022, we're all Americans together. 2016, we're all Americans together. 2022, we're all Americans together.
First, we all suffer. And so,
yeah, so, I mean, they both nod their head down, and they look down when he says that, especially Bonta. I know his wife nodded her head a little bit, but she also looked down too, and they didn't track visually like they did with everything else. So 6 years apart, the governor's getting the exact same reactions out of Californians with, we don't want to bail on America and we need to come back and save everything. And he's just not getting vocal supporter smiles when he says that. Okay.
states' rights, no, but just only for this, but not guns. Profound moment. This is what Mitch McConnell wanted. This is what Donald Trump pursued. And this is the world we're currently living in. But here's, and I'll close on this, and forgive me for reproductive rights advanced outside that state to civilly fine them or criminalize that action in the first place. Doctors themselves. That's what we're up against.
So again, he's referencing how California values and America values are so radically out of line. Second time he does it. Let's go to 4624.
What's really going on in this country and how they're just winding up, and the significance of this moment as a wake-up call. But here's where my optimism lies.
Here you go. He's about to lie.
The future is not something to experience, it's something to manifest. It's decisions. not conditions, that determine our fate and future. So we have the capacity to turn this around. We have the ability to not allow a minority leader in the House of Representatives to become a majority leader, who said today that he would, if he were the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Okay, so he's saying if there's a cause for being positive, I know, it looks bad and they're taking our lives, but it's this, the future isn't determined. We can make our own future, and we can stop a minority leader from being a majority leader. Basically, what he's saying is, if you win midterms, Democrats, you can stop the Republicans from dominating the House and the Senate. And then the minority Republican leader will not be a majority Republican leader. So his cause for optimism is, hey, we're going to just get out there and work really hard, and we're going to win those midterm elections. So he's talking about how American values are so out of line with California values. It's disgusting to the point our differences in values. He's talking about rights being stripped away from people. He's talking about how he doesn't even recognize America today. And then he says, but don't worry, because if we work really hard, we'll win midterm elections and everything will get fixed.
Move to not allow a minority leader in the House of Representatives to become a majority leader, who said today. So
that's his option, is you don't need to be pessimistic because we'll just work really hard and win midterm elections. What happens when that doesn't happen? And secondly, how are Californians going to win midterm elections? We're one state. You're going to win midterm elections in 35 rural conservative states by what? Flooding them with money? That didn't work last time. It didn't work over the last 10 years. The only thing that's going to work is if a bunch of Californians and liberals move to those states, which they don't want to do. So that is a straight up lie. That is the second factually incorrect thing the governor said. The first was Supreme Court Justice Thomas said that he wanted to reverse Loving versus Virginia. He didn't say that. Others suggested it. The second one is that there's reason for optimism in America because if Californians work really hard, they can force all of America to win the midterm elections. That's what he said. So Californians, we can work really hard and we get all America to win midterm elections. We're not even talking about winning elections in our state. We're talking about winning elections in 49 other states so that we can keep in America in line with our values. Think about that for a second. Okay, so here's the other thing. 4135.
States in America, folks in Texas right now, can be civilly fined for private right of action for aiding and abetting someone that may come to the state of California, as an example, to seek their reproductive rights and reproductive freedoms. We will in no way, shape, or form support, enable, investigate, resource any of those activities or energies. That's part of the piece.
Okay, so right there, he denied comity, comity. Comity means when the states came together, they had the federal government, but there was also, there's federal rules, but there's also kind of an understanding of we have laws in Vermont, and you in California can have separate laws, but you got to respect our Vermont laws. And in return, we'll respect your California laws. This is what allowed 50 different states to work together, was this kind of comity, an understanding of you will help me uphold my state law, and I will help you uphold your state law so we can all live together. And the governor says California is not going to follow comity. We don't care what other states do. We're not going to follow it. We're not going to be in alliance with them. We don't care if it upsets them. Well, here's the thing. That sounds great, but guess who the last people to do that were? The South, right before the Civil War. So denying comity, actually in the North refused to provide comity to the South. So slaves would leave the South. They would go to the North. There was a fugitive slave law at the federal level passed. And that meant people in the North were supposed to return the slaves or allow slave owners to come up to the North and reclaim the slaves. Well, the Northerners didn't really participate and they didn't really help, which means that they didn't follow federal law and they didn't respect Southern state laws, which you could say, hey, slavery is illegal. I mean, horrible. So that makes sense. But here's the thing. They blew apart the country when they did that. So when states start saying, I don't want to listen to you, I'm not going to follow comity, it's what happens right before the Civil War. Just like we keep talking about nullification. when Eleni Koulounakis, the lieutenant governor of California, goes on TV and says, we're going to defy the Supreme Court's rulings, and who do they think they are to tell us what to do? That's nullification of federal law and federal statute. Again, lasting before the Civil War. So you may morally think this is great, and you may morally think what the North is great, and that's fine. But from a systemic point of view, this is what you do right before the whole thing blows up and comes down. By the way, states saying they're not going to follow comity is new. It's not common. This barely ever happens. California is radically out of pace on this. So California is acting like the North, which is the step that happened right before the Civil War. Governments don't typically do this, and our government is doing it with reckless abandon.
Legislation I'll sign today, but it's also part of our legislative package that will be moving forward, providing true sanctuary and to move forward with civil actions against people that wish to travel to the state of California seeking their reproductive rights and reproductive freedoms. We will not aid, we will not abet in their efforts to be punitive, to fine.
So again, he denies comedy for the second time. And I know his wife is nodding her head up and down like this is great, female empowerment. But look at Bonta's face. Like he's like, do you know what you're doing? Because he knows morally, I'm with you. But this is chaos. This is how you bring down the whole thing. You cannot have states saying, I don't respect other states' laws and have a union. That's what they found out in 1850, right before 1861. Just saying.
Very worried about it. And the only thing that's going to stop us is up.
Are you worried that Republicans could get in charge and pass legislation to undo what you're talking about? Are you worried about that? Very worried. I know it's quiet. It's hard to hear the reporter, so let me play it one more time.
And within that framework provides the capacity, more capacity to provide those supports as relates to transportation accommodations.
How concerned are you that Republicans would ban abortion nationwide?
And the only thing that's going to stop us is us.
I'm very concerned about it, and the only thing that's going to stop us is us.
I'm very worried about it. People don't wake up. We could be living in that reality. It's very real. This is not, it's anyone pay attention to what the hell's going on. I brought up Dirks for a reason.
Are you worried that Republicans could codify the national abortion ban? Yes, I'm very worried about it. And the only thing that's going to stop it is us. Again, hearkening back to we Californians are just going to fight really hard, and then we'll win elections and undo all of this because we as one state can swing elections in 26 states to control the whole federal government. That's basically what he's alluding to. I showed you where he literally said that before. What do you think the phrase, it's going to happen and the only one to stop us is us? We're not in charge of the federal government as Californians. We would have to control the federal government in order to get a reversal of what's going on, which means he's talking about winning midterms, which means he's talking about California swinging the entire federal election across all states. That's silly. That's silly talk.
Because we're having that conversation in this country about medieval England and what the world looked like in the 1700s. You can't make this up. I was joking with one of the members of the Supreme Court. I said, unfortunately, you're a lawyer. I wish you were a historian. It was a state justice. I joked about the appointments I'm making. I said, perhaps I should be historic. Again, history professors, not legal wise. Well, it depends.
If there is a nationwide abortion ban, would that undo a lot of what you're proposing? If there was a nationwide abortion ban, would that undo what you're proposing? That was the question from the reporter, minute 53:46. Here's his.
It's hard to speculate in terms of the details. It was a state justice. I joked about the appointments I'm making. I said, perhaps I should be historic. Again, history professors, not legal wise. Well, it depends. It's hard to speculate in terms of the details of that.
That's a total lie. So she said, if the Republicans pass a nationwide abortion ban, would that undo a lot of what you're saying? He goes, that's hard to speculate. Can't get into the details. That's a total lie. Federal law supersedes state law. Period. If abortions are illegal, you can't do anything to help them or enable them. Doesn't matter. He completely lied to that reporter and everybody by saying, yeah, it's hard to tell. You know, we'll make interesting state laws, and if they go up against a total federal ban, who knows where that goes? Lie. That's a total lie. Federal ban, crush state law. California did this with Trump, where they're like, we're going to stop you building the border wall because it's illegal. And we're going to stop you from banning Muslims from coming into the country. And we're going to stop you from elongating the moratorium on refugees coming in. And we're going to stop you from selling federal land for oil. They lost on all four. So California did this big talk before. You're not going to build a border wall. You're not going to ban Muslims. You're not going to deal with refugees that way. You're not going to sell our land to oil companies. And they lost on all four to Trump. And here we see the governor saying, well, you know, it's complex and we can't really tell when we speculate how the state law is going to run up against federal law. This is the same dumb, not being honest with the public about the realities of government that the California government did famously in 2016 and lost spectacularly on 4 different issues. And here is the governor in 2024, 6 years later, playing the same game when he's asked a direct question about California buttressing against federal law.
I bet you saw today the minority leader of the House of Representatives from the state of California, who resides in a county that has twice the murder rate as our speakers. Speaker Pelosi sitting up the entire court in the first place, so we know where they land. But it's a little more alarming when folks are auditioning for the speakership.
What is your response to Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh saying that red states could ban women traveling to California for abortions? What is your response, Governor Newsom, to a sitting Supreme Court justice who interpreted the law that just came down telling red states they could ban travel to California? AKA, you just talked about, Governor Newsom, how you're going to have all these women from America travel to California. Well, Justice Supreme Court Judge Kavanaugh, who can make that kind of decision, said, no, you don't get to do that. You're wrong, and we'll shut down your plans, California. And this is what Governor Newsom said about a Supreme Court justice's legal interpretation. Watch closely.
Good for him. I mean,
Did you see that? Did you see that? Watch this again.
You know what Mitch McConnell is.
What? Look at his face. I'm confident. I'm smooth. I'm happy. It's easy going. Ha, these Republicans are stupid. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, they're so dumb. Yeah, look, swinging back and forth my head. I'm confident. Easy going. Okay, and then let's take a real question.
I mean,
and that right there, minute 54:57, minute 54:57, you just saw it. The leader of the world's 5th largest economy was asked, what's your plan when the Supreme Court shuts down interstate travel for women traveling to California to get these abortions you're offering? Because they're the Supreme Court and they can do that. And a Supreme Court justice who has that kind of power and made this decision against your will said red states could do that. And the governor's response to a technical legal question was, good for him. That's not a response. I mean, are you guys getting this? Like, that's not a response. So he's been asked 3 times by reporters. He gives this 40-minute speech. We're coming to save the day. All these American women to come to California. We're pushing back. I'm bold. I'm mighty. I'm smiling. I'm confident. Okay. That goes by. And then what do reporters ask right away? What are you going to do when the federal government shuts this down? What are you going to do when the federal government shuts this down? What are you going to do when the federal government shuts this down? Well, it's hard to say. We can't speculate. Good for him for saying that. Those are hard legal questions. Good for him is not a response. Is not a response. Only people that can stop us is us is not a legal response. These are hard legal questions about how federal law supersedes state law, and he is unable to answer 3 of them in a row. By the way, that's the only question reporters have after he gives this great long speech about how California is going to fight back, and he has absolutely no answers and is categorically unprepared to discuss that issue. Now, I liked his speech. I liked his tone. I liked his energy. I thought the speech was great. I thought what he was saying was great, except for the 2 part where he's technically incorrect. But then look at how he gets when the reporters ask him questions. Why is it that the reporters didn't ask anything other than, hey, what you said is great, but what are you going to do when the federal government strikes this down? Why did they do it 3 times? And why did he not answer 3 times in a row? And why on the 3rd time they asked, did he just flutter and have exasperation? I'm sorry, the concept of that's cool, a Supreme Court justice said, that sounds dumb. That sounds stupid and uninformed, and you are unprepared to deal with an issue of this magnitude. These are hard legal questions. People are asking, what are you going to do to protect us, Governor? You're passing a lot of state laws, but when the federal government strikes those down, what's the plan? You can't answer 3 times in a row. I showed you. I literally showed you him doing it. What's that say? All right, 1 second. Oh, this is great. Yeah, this is the smoking gun. 102.51. Okay. All right, let me show you this. So I just prepped that for you. Let me show you the smoking gun. Ready? Okay, here's the smoking gun. Ready?
And I'm going to work with other Democratic governors up and down, not only in the Western United States, but all across this country, to align our principles, align our values, and express them much more forcefully. Red states have been doing that for some time. It's time for us to wake up, control what we can control. I know y'all ask, what would you do? Those are things we can't control in the immediate.
Did you see that? Let's control what we can control. I know y'all ask, what about this? Those are things we can't control. Let me play that for you again. This is really key, and this is what the media should have been focusing on when he gave the speech, but they didn't. They completely ignored this part.
And I'm going to work with other Democratic governors up and down, not only in the Western United States, but all across this country, to align our principles, align our values, and express them much more forcefully. Red states have been doing that for some time. It's time for us to wake up, control what we can control. I know y'all ask, what would you do? Those are things we can't control in the immediate. We can control them on election day. Right.
So all those questions you asked, So hey guys, hey reporters, really, you had to ask all those questions about what are we going to do with the federal government? What are we going to do with the federal government? What are we going to, he's criticizing him for asking. He's belittling them for asking those questions, and his response is, "We're going to control what we can control, and we can't control that, except on election day." Hearkening back to his earlier statement. Californians will lose only if we let ourselves lose. We Californians, if we work hard enough, can swing the election for all 26 to 49 other states and win a national election. Not only do we have to carry California, we now have to swing a majority of the country outside of California on our own in order to secure our rights. The reason the governor did not answer the question 3 separate times about what happens when a federal government strikes down all your protections for California laws was he has no control over that. And he's only focused on what he can control. And why do you reporters really need to ask questions about what happens when the federal government shuts down everything he's proposing, meaning that Californians aren't protected at all? And that's the point. Because when Newsom talks about how it's a foreign country and that weirdo country and how they don't have values, and then he's got this great plan and can't address the question 3 times in a row, what are you going to do when the federal government strikes that down? And then criticizes reporters for even asking that question, it shows the thing. Governor Newsom has no plan to protect you. He can do absolutely no thing to protect you if the federal government strikes down. There is no protection for you other than Calexit. That's it. So when you see a governor get flabbergasted, why are you asking me about the federal government striking down all our good ideas? It says everything. There is no bigger proof. He didn't have a good answer. He wasn't prepared for that. He didn't even want to address it. Twice, he didn't even give a conscious answer. It was just that's not a good look and not preparation. Okay, a couple more quotes and then we'll end it there. 5905.
America, and how aggressively and successfully they're rolling back rights that all of us have come to take for granted. You've seen the Supreme Court just in this session, the wrecking ball they have advanced, what they're going to do in EPA next week. I mean, it's just the height of irony. Ronald Reagan himself was the former governor of California, first to sign the concealed carry bill in the country. Ronald Reagan himself advanced reproductive rights by supporting those rights as governor of California, providing more funding. And Ronald Reagan himself created the California Air Resources Board, which was a precursor to the EPA, on all 3 of those principles, former Republican governor of the state of California. And
so right there, he's talking about how Ronald Reagan had California values. Yeah, you call him a Republican. Yeah, American Republicans look up to him, but here's these American Republicans looking up to Ronald Reagan and being against the values that Ronald Reagan espoused. Not a super big Reagan fan, but here's Governor Newsom recognizing that there is a consistent California culture that's out of line with American Republican culture and American culture going back to the 1980s. Governor Newsom recognizing that you got to go back to the 1980s or 45 years ago, and you can still see a consistent pattern of a separate California culture, radically different from American culture. That's something we've been saying for a long time. Okay, 102.19. Almost done.
you know, it's a point of pride that we welcome you back. We want to celebrate that we have your back. We're not timid about it. We're not shy about it. And we know we're going to have to continue to do more. We're going to have to build, we're going to have to build our muscles up.
Governor Newsom says he wants all the Californians outside of California to come back. We completely agree with that. So he says he wants all the Californians that left to come back. Completely agree. Because he's basically hinting that we're a people.
That's why I liked what we did with Inslee and Brown. I'm speaking to him more freely. I like it because it's an example of what the advances we made on same-sex marriage should be. And expressed with clarity. And not just Criswell, not just Lawrence, but the advances we made on same-sex marriage should be reconsidered by this court. It's something I never, honestly, the worst case scenario, my worst nightmare, never thought I'd see.
And that right there is why we don't already have Calexit. He's saying he never thought he would live to see the day where the Supreme Court did this.
It's something I never. The City Hall, 4,036 couples in 46 states and 6 countries around the world came out to live their lives out loud and say 2 remarkable words: I do. And to see all the progress, and then now see a Supreme Court justice that used his inside voice and expressed with clarity, and not just Criswell, not just Lawrence, but the advances we made on same-sex marriage should be reconsidered by this court. Is something I never, honestly, the worst case scenario, my worst nightmare, never thought I'd see.
Governor Newsom famously against Calexit in 2016. In 2022, he again tells people when the body as a whole suffers, we all feel the pain, alluding to the commonality of all of us being Americans. But then at the very end of his speech, he says, I never expected to see the Supreme Court striking down laws like this. You know, when Donald Trump was elected, we pointed out here at Yes California Calexit that a majority of Americans backed him. In California, liberals kept talking about how Donald Trump did not win the popular vote. That's technically true. But the only reason Donald Trump did not win the popular vote in 2016 was because of California votes alone. California votes alone made Hillary Clinton the popular vote getter. If you remove California votes in 2016, a majority of your Americans outside of California backed Trump. That was after he said that Mexicans are rapists, murderers, and maybe some of them are okay. That's white supremacy talk. People were shocked then that America picked him in 2016. The guy already said Mexicans are rapists. Then he gets elected. And then Californians are shocked, including the governor. He never thought Trump would be elected. Okay. Then Kavanaugh gets appointed. People never thought Kavanaugh would get appointed. Okay. Then Biden wins the election again, but Biden was really supposed to be a refutation of Trump after 4 years, and it wasn't. Biden won 52%. When the election happened, it was around 41 something, and Trump was at 49%. So Biden really only beat Trump by about 2 to 3%, and Biden really only won a majority of the country by 2%. You had multiple European nations, including the German newspaper Deutsche Welle, saying, wow, America, you said a repudiation. This is not. And that, too, was shocking to Newsom and other Democrats. So my question to Newsom is, you were shocked when Trump was elected. I never thought I'd see the day. I literally showed you where the legislature said they woke up with America in a foreign country. Kavanaugh gets appointed to Supreme Court Justice. I never thought I'd see the day. Donald Trump, after 4 years, almost wins again. I never thought I'd see the day. Roe v. Wade gets struck down by the Supreme Court. Donald Trump put into place. I never thought I'd see the day. Well, at Yes California, we told you before Trump was coming that America's the place that would elect him. We told you America was failing. We told you that America was going more right. We told you that a minority of states had control over the country and they were making the Supreme Court work for them. And we told you in 2018 that Donald Trump was going to eventually take away all these rights, even if he wasn't president. So, Governor Newsom, why are you constantly surprised? I never thought this would happen. 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 Maybe your inability to see what's going to happen again and again and again and again is why you keep getting surprised. You stood against this in 2016 against Calexit. We told you then that what's going on now was going to happen. You didn't believe us. Now we're here, and in your own press conference, you go, I never thought I'd see the day. Well, what does it mean when Yes California Calexit tells you exactly what's going to happen? And it happens exactly like we say it is, years ahead of time, and it's another thing that you never thought would ever happen. How many times do you need to be surprised by what America does before you realize it ain't the country you thought it was? Anyways, you've seen how over 6 years, the California government continues to be dismayed and alienated by American culture, shocked and horrified by their fellow Americans. And you saw again how our governor has absolutely no answer to 3 questions in a row about how are you going to protect us when the federal government shuts down our laws. Just like when California told when the California government told Californians in 2016, Donald Trump isn't going to be able to direct funding to that border wall. Donald Trump is not going to be allowed to have federal lands drill for oil. Donald Trump is not going to be able to ban Muslims. Donald Trump is not going to be able to put a refugee ban. And all four of those things passed. And on all four issues, Californians were wrong. By the way, the California government never went back and told the California people, sorry for completely misleading you on those four things. Wow, did we really get that wrong? And then here we see Governor Newsom again. It's one more election. And, California, if America doesn't vote Democrat, it's all our fault because as one state, we have the ability to switch all of the way America votes. And we're the crazy ones at Calexit. Mm-hmm. Californians alone can switch the American election. Hey, we were shocked 4 times in a row, but I'm sure things aren't bad and they can get all fixed. And we're the crazy ones. Right. Well, think you've seen it? Think we proved the point. That man has no more faith in America, and he has no more answers on how he's going to protect us. And it finally took 6 years, but we're here this week. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.